Mein Name ist Theodora Fischer. Im Namen der Fondation Beyeler möchte ich Sie ganz herzlich willkommen heißen zu diesem Abend mit Marlene Dumas. Wir freuen uns alle, dass sie auch das noch auf sich genommen hat und you should understand this. We are very happy and grateful that you were ready also to come here after all this many things you did for the show, and so we are very much looking forward to your lecture. Ich möchte noch kurz sagen, dass am Schluss der Lecture von Marlene Dumas es auch möglich sein wird, Fragen zu stellen, und wir werden dann schauen, ob sich das bewährt oder ob wir dann einfach hinaufgehen werden. Viel Vergnügen.
Okay, just wait a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just want to see what I've got. Yeah, well, hello, everybody. I'm very pleased you are all here, and I'm very nervous. I have to warm up, and otherwise I lose all my words because I'm going to improvise, and I'm working with Rudolf Evenes. We make the lectures like this, that the images is the main things that I can improvise on, and even though yeah, you see, okay, but just get used to being here. It's a big difference. I just want to say how the lecture is being put together. It's in sort of little blocks, you could say. The first bit is about the different exhibitions, because this was is, of course, it's not finished yet, a retrospective. So it is, I think, of sort of 40 years, 100 years, you know, you get very old, and it is, and one thinks sometimes, you know, that it's not so difficult to make a retrospective, because you would say, okay, you just take the best of, and then you put it together, but it doesn't quite work like that, because there was 3 venues, the Stedelijk Museum, the Tate, and Beyeler was the last one. And apart from the fact that you're all the time busy with your past and everyone disagrees on what is actually the better works or the worst works, and you have all the sentiments and all the things that mixes it up, the 3 different venues also have a whole different feel. And what is very important for me is when you make an exhibition is also where does it start? And when you decide where it starts, I mean, what is your first room? It's a bit like writing a book or making a film. You can read it from the back to the front, but it is important to have a starting point, to have a front and to have a back, and then you can mix them all up. And it also sets the tone a bit for the show. So I'm going to show you this is the first thing that we're going to look at. The show started at the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam, and it's a totally different building than the Beyeler. It has one large room in which I've got a group of drawings called models. And you see, you can come up those stairs, and when you come up these stairs, you get into this very big space. And on the one hand, there was these pin-ups, and we used the whole space only for drawings. So the people of the museum who was from the drawing department was very pleased, because they said, at last, you know, it's not the paintings, it's the first time that big space has only got drawings, because drawings were always the paintings were the big things and the drawings were the secondary things. And for me, it's not really like that. I find works on paper just as important as paintings. There was a time, and the people who knows my older works, who I see I've got here people from the first of the beginning and all of that, there was a time where I thought I'm never going to paint again because I'm only going to work on paper because then I solved the whole problem of all the painterly problems, you know. And so for a little while I was very happy, and then I did go to painting again. Anyway, so the stedelijk was the difficulty with the stedelijk is there was these different entrances. So you did not always quite know where you were going to go from the one to the other. And then we got to the Tate. But the stedelijk was a bit, how should I say? Anyway, the Tate is a different story. The Tate is a bit more dramatic, the entrance, as you can see. I didn't know if I should do that. Another friend of mine who have worked with a long time, Ulrich Lok, he said, "Oh, Marlene, that's disgusting." You want to get the people in by making a thing like that, to blow up, a painting like this. And the younger people quite liked it. They said, "Ah, that's nice." So I thought I've never done that before. And so we did that. And here we did not have the models to start with. We had the group called Rejects, which is actually sort of the flip coin of the models, and they could also go on forever. And but none of these groups are in the Beyeler. And we can, Rudolf, let's move them on. Okay, so you see, so the Beyeler's got a whole different start. And Theodora is a person who's got a vision, and you have to really convince her if you don't agree with her about something. So, it's a bit quick. Okay, but I just want to say, yeah. So, so the first room we knew we wanted the painter because the painter is one of those works that really stands for many things, and we thought here we would look much more at paintings and but Theodora first thought that was a good idea to have this painting in the first room. But, because another thing I'm going to talk about in this lecture is about my relationship to titles. You have the paintings, you have the gestures, and you have the titles and the associations that titles add and texts add to the work. So this is called the artist and his model, but in this case it was inspired by Luc Telmans, who painted the Queen in Holland. So the ghost-like figure is the Dutch Queen. And but I thought maybe, it's not, we thought, we both agreed in the end, we rather go for a more, how can I say, could we just go? So we go to the painter confronts, she stands like this, and then you have a self-portrait, also a work that wasn't chosen by the other two curators, The Sleep of Reason. And you have the portrait of my daughter called Helena's Dream. And both of these female models have got their eyes closed. So it's a very, so only the one is a confrontation like that, and the others have got the eyes closed. And then having that painting there in the first room, that painting was done at the same time as this painting was done almost. And then as we were putting the show together, we found also although that was not really in the beginning thought out as a thing, that the self-portrait, in a funny way, comes through the different spaces. So in the end, this self-portrait is then the last image you see in the show. And here, because I'm not very linear, so I'll jump back and forth, as you know. Here I'm talking also about, want to mention the different type of titles that I use, because I mean, Switzerland is a place of clocks, as you know. Time is very important. And so Self-Portrait at Noon is one of the few works that in the title it says what time of day it is. And my mother died at noon, but this picture was not, this painting was not made at her death. It was made, I think, yeah, a year later almost. But I sort of, so the noons also stands a bit, you know, one of the famous cowboy paintings, High Noon. It sort of plays in one day. I often like paintings that are films that also plays in one day. So you have this time structure like that. And the clock is running, as you know. So here you have, because I did not know of this drawing, but I just thought it was nice to, because I like Munch, to add here. You also have study for self-portrait, but he's got it really 2:15 at night. And so this was apparently more about his own death, but when I use the word noon, it relates to my mother's death, but it also relates to myself. As you say, you're getting older, so you're sort of in the, you know, later part of your life. Now, something a bit more funnier. We get here to, also each venue chose paintings that they put more emphasis on. And then these two works were also not in the other two venues. They were specific works that Tudora liked a lot, this one and Broken White. And they were exhibited, they weren't really ever exhibited in Europe because they were once made for a show in Japan. And this is just interesting to see, talking about swans, huh? So we've got the competition in the Schaulager, and we've got another swan. So that's always nice to use a bit like football, you know, with artists too, museums and stuff. You have a little bit of, okay, they've got a swan too, and we've got a swan. Okay, we didn't know that then. But the first time it was exhibited, I exhibited it with, I had in that exhibition works of other artists that I somehow related to. And the work there is a work by Araki on the wall. And we have a, yeah. And what was interesting is Araki is very well known for his erotic works, but it makes me think of, my father is long dead, but he used to say, there is nothing, an ugly woman does not exist. All women are beautiful. Now, my mother said that he didn't mean it because he married a beautiful woman. But Araki also has that. It's not only that you have, this was the inspiration for Broken White, but with Araki, which is also very nice, is that it's not only to do with the young naked ladies, he also has series indeed where you have this feel that, in a sense, all women are interesting enough to look at. Okay? Where are we now? Okay, the title of the show, I'm just standing because I'm so short, and otherwise you can't see me so well. but then I need a drink. So this was the title is the title of the show, and as you can see, this work is from the 90s. Yeah. So here's another example of a title, but in this case, I mean, the title has not got very much to do with the source at all. We'll also look at the fact of how sometimes source material is very important for the work, in the sense that the work and the source material falls together very well, but in a sense, that work don't have very much to do with this. Actually, I don't know really why I chose this one to start off with, because it's a long time ago. But I just want to show the source, what's another point about that? Oh yeah, because it's also strange, because you have to, having a retrospective, you have to talk about yourself all the time. So you sort of analyze yourself, and you find reasons for things you've done, and sometimes indeed you cannot remember at all. And then you start, and then you look at the past, and this work that is, as we've done as a wallpaper, is a work from the late beginning 80s, and then I was looking at the fact of how newspapers treat love and death, and they just roll out all these emotional subject matter. And I was very much busy with the fact, is it possible to make paintings that deal with these type of subject matter? Because actually I wanted to be an abstract painter. But, so I didn't quite know how to do that, because okay, well, we'll go into that later, but let's get back to another. Oh yeah, I just want to say about the former image of the wallpaper. There I discovered that I have, years ago, also used the image, but then not with that title, because I was looking at how love stories and how body language sometimes look similar. So I also found things that I didn't know, that I have already looked at years ago, and then so many years later, they come back. Here is an example of a title where you don't use the time of day, but you use the date. I was at art school, and in this show you have the schoolgirl, and which is almost done at the same time as this. But as you can see here, I liked Willem de Kooning, I liked pop art, and I didn't quite know what I was doing, and I wanted to do something about the superficiality, you know, all those things, the sort of plastic female nude and this and that. So I made this painting. It was the biggest painting I ever made then, but I didn't know what to call it, because it was for me very important that you don't just give a title just to make something sound cleverer or better, but I didn't know how to deal with that, and I thought I did it in one day. I still do often. The better paintings takes a very long time to actually get there, to be able to make a painting, but it then goes very fast. So there I only called it that date and that year. Then you have painters who also use dates, but as this is very famous, the Richter, I mean, and he is, as we know, a very important artist, and I was then young, and he did this work in 1988, I believe, 10 years after. So the title has got the date of the sources, but the work was, yeah, and we have another work. This is a work by Steve McQueen, and where he also used the date, but in which, where Richter used a more wider political part of the whole history, and that he used a more intimate, his cousin was killed by the two brothers. It was an action duel, so it's a whole long story. But anyway, I'm just trying to say, so how one struggles with how do you name something? How do you title something? Here you see this is also from art school in South Africa. I was at art school there 1972 to 1975. And this is a found object in the street, indeed. And the title just says what it is. The book was run over by the car. So all the words are gone, and only the materiality stays. So I was also, and still am, somehow all the problems you have, they never go away. They just change a bit forms, but they always stay. I always say to students, don't think you're ever going to get rid of the problems that they just, if you are serious about your work, they'll stay forever, unfortunately. But so there is this thing, on the one hand, wanting to name things, wanting to place things, and on the other hand, this was a collage from that time. I also, and I found in films, I often like the films where the characters don't have names. One of my favorite films, Hiroshima, Mon Amour, the main characters also, they don't have names. And here you have, this is indeed what Marlon Brando says to her in this film. So now we're going to have, and I'll speak about this later. Now I can sit down, take a break.
Now, let's just look at each other.
It's beautiful without knowing anything. Maybe we can come without touching.
Come without touching? Okay. You concentrating? Did you come yet?
No.
Huh?
It's difficult.
I didn't either yet. You're not trying hard enough.
I shall have to invent a name for you.
A name? Oh, jeez. Right. Oh, God, I've been called by a million names all my life. I don't want a name. I'm better off with a grunt or a groan for a name. Do you want to hear my name?
It's so masculine.
Yeah.
Listen to mine.
I didn't get the last name.
So you will find with my paintings also, or my work, that you often have, sometimes the title seems to be in the negative, as if in one of my older works in the show, luckily the show is still here, so certain works I don't have to show you, you can go and look at it there, but no, I've lost it again also about, oh yeah, now we're getting to paint. Indeed, I should hurry up because otherwise we're going to go from names to paint. But just before we get there, just want to say, yeah, the thing of, I will have a work that says love hasn't got anything to do with it, while the the work was made when I was very sad about a love story, and I was crying, and I'm sort of sitting there making the gestures of the crying. So the works often, but you can't cry forever. So then at a certain stage you look at what you've done and you think, well, I was sad and it was about that, but is this work still about that? So these type of the intimacy of something and then the pulling out of it and then the looking at it, this is something that I find is very important in my work. There is a lot of emotional things, but there is also a lot of distancing, looking at what you've done and then trying to, you're the doctor and you're the patient, and it goes up and down. But now we're going to go to the other aspect of painting, or the aspect that makes a painting is that you use paint, which is a material. You can't just talk about all the associations and meanings in your head. You're also making a physical object. And what is interesting here is Luc Tuymans, a painter that I like a lot, and we have been compared in different ways. But what was very interesting in the old days, the males were always the painters, and the males were supposed to be, they paint like this. Some of them still paint like that. Paint like this. And he doesn't paint like that. But what is interesting is that I had thought that he would have a much more dirty palette. But he's got I was very surprised. And I like to read about other artists. This is my palette. Because I understand myself better through listening to other artists, because you think, oh, I am a bit like that, but I'm not like that. So you have artists who think that everything they made came from God or they fell out of the sky. But I really think an artist is an artist because of other artists, and that we have we learn from one another, we take from one another, we whatever. But anyway, so I thought it was interesting, the difference between my paint. Yeah, my paint. And it is strange, I'm 62, I think, and all these years, I have still not learned to put the lid on this tube. And you should not tell that to your students and young people, because it's not a good thing. Your paint dries out. But so the thing about it is very important, the material you use. So we come from paint to painters. This was the snapshot that I used for this was my daughter, and she painted herself, but she painted herself with the sun and with all these things, and I only used that image I never give my work a title before it is finished, because the painting has to be able to carry its title. If the painting doesn't want its title, it doesn't work. So in this case, I thought, okay, where do I want to, what is it that interests me most in this painting? And if I would just have called it my daughter, it would be very sentimental. Or now it is much more the alter ego almost of it's female, it's not directly myself, but it is also sort of, in a sense, a stand-in for a new type of painter. But I mean, now all the females, we all paint too. But the thing is, there is beautiful paintings of Rembrandt, for example. I looked at it later. I thought it's so interesting to see how the artists, in this case the painters through the ages, how they portray themselves. And so the thing of the macho male and the female that is so vulnerable, mostly is not quite true in many cases, because here you have Rembrandt, and this easel is so big, and he's so small. It is a fantastic painting. Okay. Then you have, I only use these two because this is a subject on itself. I tried to find a good one of Baselitzer, because he's just made all the woman angry, you know, because he says woman can't paint. But I thought, okay, you know, he's an attractive man, and but anyway, so this is not to put them down. This is interesting to, you know, I thought the males of my generation also, they also make jokes on the cliche of the man with the brush, the painter with the brush. And Lupus is a case in himself. Okay, so from the males to the Playboy magazine. We are now going to a bit more erotic section, and this was a Dutch Playboy from 1990, and the female figure here is Margaux Hemingway. Now, most of you maybe don't know who she was anymore, but she was the granddaughter of Ernest Hemingway, and I wasn't looking for her in the Playboy, but there she was. And what was also interesting is that, I mean, I should have known, but eroticism, like everything else, like other images too, is very, it's time-bound, and it's also fashion-bound, because my daughter saw these Playboys, and she was, you know, she was sort of looking a bit like, but it wasn't because they were naked women, but pubic hair is disgusting, you know, for that generation. So the 90s Playboy had all these pubic hair, and that was so interesting, because that was what she didn't like, you know? And then you have all the centuries where they want to bring back the pubic hair in the painting because it's been left out, and then you have a new generation and they want to get rid of it again. So she didn't, you know, find that so appealing. But I like this painting a lot, but oh, I don't know if I have to say so much about this painting. But here you have, chance plays a big role also in my work. So as I said, I didn't expect to find her in the Playboy, and I just thought, you know, I was actually busy with, this is the year where I'm trying to paint something for my mother's death. And then I thought, you know, my mother had a good sense of humor. And it's very hard to paint weeping women, especially after Picasso, but we'll get to that later. But I just wanted to say, so I thought she wouldn't like it if I make a lot of kitsch paintings, and I said it's because my mother died. So somehow it was quite a relief to suddenly see a bit of eroticism. It just happened by chance. What I want to add about some of the other erotic drawings, this I once described. I was saying about that a lot of my work is to do with suggestion. It is not as naturalistic as it looks. So if you isolate bits, you would not quite know what it is. But then this is, for example, a close-up of the work before. So why it's difficult also when you reproduce works, you only get the image. You don't get the gestures so well, you don't get the surface, you don't get the size. And when I was young, I thought the fact that painters always, you know, complained that you couldn't see a painting in reproduction, that was nonsense, but it's true. That you totally lose the physical aspect of the painting in a reproduction. So this was, so that you can see, even if I'm not doing, you know, doing it like, I'm not trying to be de Kooning anymore. I still really, for me, a painting, even if it's very flat, has the aspect of the gesture or the surface is extremely important. So it's not only the subject matter, but it's also, how you treat that subject matter. Talking about that, maybe I'm just going to sit down 1 minute looking at this. We're going to go now from the eroticism. I mean, not that these things are ever totally separated to the weeping woman, but this missing Picasso is sitting a bit in between, because when I say missing Picasso, there's humor, because there's often humor in the work, although it's not so much ha ha ha. But I always defended Picasso, because I feel I understand Picasso a little bit. You know, I think there's nothing more wonderful to fall in love, and then you make beautiful paintings, and then you fall out of love, and then you got a problem again. And so I understand him. It's not, you know, it's not only a male thing. And, so I also want to say the missing Picasso, the source material, it is also in the last room, was actually a photograph of Man Ray of Merit Oppenheim. So that's also very nice sometimes how, and I really like her work also, how things come together. And I also chose that photograph. I didn't first know it was Man Ray, but because of the very white of the body, and she had this very dark pubic hair. But she didn't have a title, and my painting made me think a little bit about Picasso, and I thought, because I am a fan, and when I was trying to find how to paint a weeping woman, I thought, you know, after Picasso's Weeping Woman, I haven't seen really a painter who's been able to do it. There's been very good, in the history of art, extremely beautiful and touching pictures, but it's been very difficult. I found, I mean, maybe they are there, but to do that aspect of the suffering person where the form and the content falls together so well than Picasso. This is Glass Tears, and you know the Man Ray. And I feel she's got Man Ray's tears and she's got Picasso's nose or so. Small painting, and this, sometimes image interests me because I read a sentence about it. And I read in a book, it was about tears in art, and it said that this is sort of the last modernist, you know, because it's not real tears. So anyway, so I was very busy with this thing of the artificial tears. Okay. So this painting called Waterproof Mascara. So while I'm now struggling with all these weeping women, it started as the source material was a Madonna that was a very kitschy one somewhere in Belgium, and she was supposed to cry. And I tried to use that, but only the blue at the top of the little thing is left. So this painting, the face came from the painting. It was not like the Man Ray, where I deliberately wanted to stay closer to the source. And then the waterproof mascara made me think of the fact that in our Western culture, you know, most of the, especially the film stars, they all go to funerals with dark glasses on. So, you know, the whole thing of the weeping person, we don't want to weep in public, oh no. So, it was interesting that, I mean, these are all fake tears, you could say, but anyway, So certain things, I'm not going to explain them all, but I'm just showing you how sometimes the different sources, so sometimes it's a very pop arty source, it can be a cover of something like that, and so anyway. So then I had the show called Forsaken, and the main character was the crucifix, Jesus on the cross. And I believe the next exhibition in Beyeler is going to be of Malevich. And I always thought, the white cross on some Maleviches that I'm also very jealous of, that I thought, if I can have my figure being a bit one with the cross. So I was very much thinking about this thing of being forsaken, the whole thing about the forsaken aspect, not about, trying to paint the biblical thing, because if we go back to the solo one, Rudolph, I have a title that also displays a bit the artist feeling, because I also like the word solo, because if you have a solo show, you're very solo. And you do feel forsaken. So all these, I mostly don't have only one reason for doing something. It is mostly a link of different things coming together. Okay? And it's also nothing really new in the history of art. You have many artists who have identified with the figure of Christ. So Ensor, the Belgian artist, he has written Ensor on the cross. So he is sort of seeing the artist as a Christ-like figure. And then Kippenberger, an artist that I also enjoy very much. So he's not so much making fun of Jesus Christ or Christ, but he is making also a self-portrait, and there is this, I can't quite do it like this, but I can appreciate it, because also the cross, I just wanted to say, is a painter's, how do you call it? Easel thing, yeah. So, okay. And I just wanted to also, this is, I think, somewhere in Russia, and this guy has decided, he is Christ has come back. And I always like this thing also of the fake, because you have, as we, in the group of drawings we have in this show called Jesus Serene, they are all made from different sources, because, nobody knows how he looked like if he existed, and yet we have a culture based on all kinds of different images of Jesus. Someone once said the people who see people coming from Mars or so, people who really feel they have seen people from out of space, that it is strange that they always look a little bit like they're green and they got these things sticking out of their heads. So it seems that certain images get stuck, and then we think, oh, here comes Jesus. Now, we're getting towards the end, I think. Not quite, but so when I saw this image for the first time, it was the combination of the image and the text that influenced me a lot, because another thing that runs through my work is sometimes a naked or half-naked person, it can be erotic or it can be a mixture, but it can also stand for other things. So the fact of her being so vulnerable in this situation with these men, because I have known about Lumumba, but I've never seen his wife. And so before I use this image in any way, I used to use it in lectures just about the different ways the naked female, or and in terms of grief, because she is grieving, and as image, because they are all dressed. If everyone was undressed in that way, it would also be different. And then again, this thing of time passing. This book I read, and there's your Giacometti too, when I was a student in South Africa, and I found the book again, and then I found I had underlined many things in those days there too, but there was a short passage in which Simone de Beauvoir speaks about that photograph in just one line almost, where she says, how can a novel compete with an image like that? But she was also talking about some other images also of Lumumba. And, but the first time I found the image, it was in a book about assassinations. And then eventually I found this image, and it was in the Time magazine of 1961, of when it happened. And it said, Gone with the Paris Frocks. And I thought, the difference how a text can influence you when you look at the image is very important. And when I try to give this, so after so many years, I painted this image in 2 different versions, and I thought, should I call it Paulina? I thought, I'm not that close. Anyway, so the emphasis is here on the widow. But in 1982, I used it where I put this is in this show, where there I was still busy with this thing of the newspaper, the press. There's the wife of Malcolm X. Her husband has just been assassinated, and she comes out of the morgue, and she immediately gets all the how do you say, microphones in front of her. So how does private grief, how do you treat that in images, in public images? I mean, I never knew I would stand here and talk to you about that, so I feel a little bit unprivate myself at the moment. But anyway, and I used myself as a cartoon there on the, so it was a bit of a simple solution. I don't know if it's such a good work, but it's again, you trying to think, what is the problems I would like to deal with in my work? Because why can the pop songs deal with it, and the films, and what, how can the painters be of their time? And I just want to say what I also only later thought of Lumumba and Kennedy. The one is the American widow, and the other one is the African widow. And Paulina Lumumba recently died, and I never saw a picture of her death in the Belgian newspaper. Well, Andy Warhol, not only Andy Warhol, but the whole American culture, she has really become sort of the American symbol of all of that. Okay, now we come to another character. We had Jesus, and now we have from the one religion to the other. Although I don't really know if he was a religious man in that sense of the word, but I made 2 versions of him. The one I made first, and this one is the smaller one in this show. Okay. Later, I made the son of, also in the show, the son of Osama, which is a better couple maybe than the first double portrait. What I found interesting was, in the Christian religion, you have this, where, or so they say, God says, I love the world so much that I sacrifice my son. In a sense, that's also, okay, we don't have to talk religion now, but apparently the son of Osama, he wrote a book in which he said, my father hated his enemies more than he loved his sons. So, but why all these things came a bit later, but why I actually wanted to portray him this was the image, especially in the Dutch newspapers, but all over the place, that was repeatedly shown in the media, as if he, like a sort of Jesus, were never gonna grow old. I mean, and so the people who was for him had the T-shirts, and the people who was against him had the T-shirts, and it was mostly always the same image. So I was fascinated by that aspect of this is a Dutch artist, actually, but that's okay. And I also wanted to say, when I choose an image, then, it's not, because especially in England also, then the people who say, sometimes you get this question, why did you paint Osama? Or why did, some certain questions, or why do you always paint women? No, I don't only paint women. Why don't you always, so what I'm trying to say, so it was not all the images of Osama that interest me. This one says, there he's paranoid and lonely, and there it was that specific image that kept on being used. And also here it's interesting, also about what is the difference between the information that the press or the internet or photographs give you and paintings then give, because we also know that everything can be manipulated and removed or placed. So in this picture, they say, there he is, and then you have this picture, and they say, Osama is not, not in this picture at all. So moving from the family picture to another family picture, the nuclear family. Now we're really getting close to the end. So this picture, I've always wanted to paint a family, but when I was young also, and still you think there must be more ways to coexist than the nuclear family. So, but can I just sort of show where it comes from? But, and in a sense, the source, they are not the real people. They are not really your classic nuclear family in any way. They're expecting unexpected third child here. But he's the model, and he, it was nice, this photograph that they pose together like that, because everyone has become so worried about naked people that, so if, I have my solo people, I have my singles, I have my families, and here, in the great men group, as I say, a different version of living than the nuclear family, when I was doing this group for Russia, for the manifesto that I was invited for, I then discovered all kinds of things that I didn't know, because I started to read more also. And I'll just read you this. And as I said, this is now almost the last. What I found very interesting is, because I write little texts and things, not so much explain the work, but sometimes a parallel text. And that was my text. And then I found this by James Baldwin, written, about his own work, long before I wrote my little thing. And it sounds very similar, because when you use figuration or sad imagery, it doesn't really mean that therefore you are such a kind, nice person, or, doesn't really say, but so I've also always, as I said, been interested in the relation between the person, the artist, and what you think you're doing. And here you see James Baldwin, who says, The writer's greed is appalling. He wants or seems to want everything and practically everybody. In another sense, and at the same time, he needs no one at all. And and it's also this thing of where you reflect on yourself, so it's not really against the public or your viewers, but it is this, this complicated relationship. Who are you doing it for yourself? Am I doing it for somebody else? What are we doing? So I wrote something in which I said, if a prostitute is a person who makes it a profession to gratify the lusts of various persons for economical reasons or gain, where emotional involvement may or may not be present, then it seems not so far removed from my definition of an artist. Artists usually love to pretend. Artists usually pretend to love much more than they can handle. They want everyone to want them, while they don't want anybody. So, I made one little work for Beyeler, because all the other works have been seen once somewhere else or so. But it's in relation to this, that's just why I'm showing it at the moment. In the Venice Biennale, there's one room with these little skulls. And I have started to do them in between all the times you get stuck and you don't really know indeed what it's all about. And it has got a bit of therapeutic also, that you don't have to think so much. Because in a sense, this is the little skull. It's in the drawing room, or whatever we call our room, with all the information. So I made a little skull because in a way, it's the skull is almost like either the last portrait or the first portrait. And these little drawings I did with my daughter when she was small. And I really like them a lot because they're very simple, but because we did them together, in the sense I made the blob and then she made that, there is a structure in them, because my big love is the portrait and the human body. I mean, not in life so much, but in art. So, and how do you make a face? All you need is really three there, dots or so, and you've got a face. And I was just also to say last thing about Picasso, is he used to say, I tried my whole life to draw like a child again, because he could draw so well. But I don't know, again, if it's the man-woman thing, but I, my whole life, wanted to be wise and old. And not wanted to look old, but to, be so wise. I don't want to be like a child, because I am like a child. So anyway, so this was a little skull for the Beyeler. Thank you very much.
much. Are you still ready to answer something?
Yeah, if there is something someone really wants to know, I can. Then, we may.
There is one question.
Yeah. Yes?
Because you were talking about,
You will get the microphone.
You were talking about the bodies, the situations, the faces, but I found that very much important at all these pictures were the eyes. How much is the importance of the eyes in your people?
Yeah, the eyes are very important in the sense that that is one of the vehicles of expressing different emotions. So if the eyes go a bit like this or that is a very important thing. But I remember that a friend of mine, she's also sitting here in the audience, I don't know if she remembers it still, but she once said to me, I don't know if she said it about myself, but you know, when a person is nervous, it's also interesting with lie detectors or so, what do you actually look at? And sometimes the eyes can stay blank, and then it's the mouth or so. So with these works, you're right, a lot of it is the eyes, but sometimes it can also be that a mouth or an ear or something is the thing where it sits. But I could never sew on buttons all night, but I can definitely all night wipe out eyes and put them back on again. So I don't know, it's, yeah.
I have a question about using colors. Yeah. Going through the exposition earlier, I noticed one sentence from yourself. You said you apply colors instinctively, but nevertheless, they're always the same colors coming back. Instinctively, always coming same colors back, like the turquoise and a very dark red and the blue, and then you mix blue and red, and then you talk about scars showing through the skin being pink. So I was wondering, is it all instinctively, the colors, or do you apply them on purpose?
Well, it seems that there's also different periods, although, as you say, there is a tendency for certain colors to come back. But in that sense, because tonight I'm just going to quote Picasso, because there's many other artists, but just about the color. He once said about the difference between him and Matisse, because Matisse is a real colorist. So, but Picasso is more graphic, and in the sense, there's a lot of works of mine where indeed you could say, if you print it in black and white, some of them, I mean, that it's maybe still okay because it's the dark and the light and the tones and the drawing almost who carries it, and not so much the colors. But then there is other works, say like the painter, where it's very important that in the real, the painter is actually not so pink and not so sweet in color, that there is this mixture of the face is almost sort of a bit green or so. And a child once said about the work, he says, look, Mama, there's a child with a warm hand and a cold hand. And I thought that was very nice because, in a sense, sometimes I use it very simply, so it's not always just intuitively, sometimes very deliberately, where you think, say with the dead girl, then you have, all the drama is in the face, but the color red is so strong, the color red is not sitting where the drama is, but sitting in the T-shirt. Or the white disease, or so certain works, the color And I'm sorry that I've lost certain colors a bit, because you definitely have periods. I think I worked with the Polaroids a lot, and I love the artificial turquoises and colors of the Polaroid. I really like that. And now the Polaroid, okay, they're coming back, but and using I think, and maybe that's why I should stop using the terrible things from the newspapers, because also terrible, because then you work with that, with those black and white and the bits, so I mean, you're right, but indeed there is certain periods, if one look at it, where you see certain colors are more prominent than others.
They're very beautiful.
Thank you.
How did you balance before your work, when your daughter was born, how did you balance motherhood from that point on, and how was your work different? What were not so much your inspirations, but what did you pull from that after her birth as an artist and a mother and a working artist and mother? How did it change for you? Yeah. How did you balance motherhood and art?
I must say about that question, I have answered that question with many different answers because, just after she was born, I was so scared that I couldn't work anymore, that I would say, no, it's not really a problem, no. It's, if you have a sick husband, it's the same, you just have, and I had another female artist, Jo Bear, who was much older than I was, and she would say, when you have a child, you will not spend so much time on nonsense things, because then you really start to concentrate, because your time is less. So what I find the most difficult, I mean, now it's so many years later, so now I said, sometimes I think, it was very hard. But it is, but on the other hand, I sometimes had, in those years, very productive years of, because I always would work at night, and then I had to go home because you have a child, and you get very nervous. I just mean, so you tense, but, you see, I can't answer this question just it's more this thing of it's very, art or anything that needs a lot of concentration. If you have a child, then your concentration is all the time, have to go somewhere else. So in that sense, you have to really try to order your life that you can paint. So I don't know if that has answered it, but I mean, it is a difficult thing.
Were you able, did you have a schedule? Were you able to balance the time, or was it sort of just sporadic? You found time when you found time?
Yeah, well, I had my daughter once said in an interview, she said she wouldn't do it like that, but because I had many people looking after her, sometimes she said I met a lot of very interesting women in that way. And also I had men also helping. So the extended family, ex-boyfriends and partners, and I had. It's good to always stay in touch with your ex-friends.
Thank you.
I found your work highly personal. Was there ever the question of not painting so personal?
Oh, but there's always the problem of not painting at all. I mean, it's more the question of making anything at all that's more difficult than using personal things, because that's why I often relate to filmmakers. Say like Kubrick or so, he can make, you know, a film about war, but he can also make a film about another subject. So, or you know, you can make a comedy, or you, yeah, I'm not answering this well, but what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, the fact of using personal aspects, that comes a bit naturally, you know. If you have a baby, then they are not in this show, but, you know, then I made these big babies because you're busy with this baby all the time. So it's not that I particularly like babies that much, but, I mean, you know, but I then also see it as a challenge. So you have the private aspect, you've just had a baby, but then you also start to look, who has painted babies, for example. So there's also, it's always also a challenge. It's not only the private. I start with the private because I cannot, you know, yeah, some people can make a wonderful work from a potato or so. I cannot do that. But I'm not against potatoes. But it is more, I mean, that is what I find the starting point. Yeah, so it's, yeah.
Oh, I think.
Yeah, maybe we have to stop. We have to take a drink or something.